Kiernan only screamed. I mean, he was unhappy almost from the get-go. And you wouldn't call it crying, you would call it screaming. It was awful.
At 2 months old, Kiernan Tellier was referred to Children's Hospital Boston for testing. He was suffering from excruciating gastrointestinal pain. But at the time, no one knew that Kiernan had one of the most complex and frustrating diseases a child can have.
After they had done the testing, we got a phone call that we should take him to the emergency room right away. The emergency room doctor explained to us that they had found some protein in his urine.
That was a clear sign that he actually had kidney problems at that time. We just didn't know what the reason was.
But the news on Kiernan got even worse.
An emergency room physician detected some subtle neurologic signs that did reveal he had hydrocephalus.
The hydrocephalus presented the most immediate danger, and the next day, neurosurgeons inserted a shunt to drain the fluid from Kiernan's brain. Then, the kidneys could be dealt with. Soon after, it was meningitis, then fungal meningitis, lung and heart problems, his stomach. For more than 7 years, Kiernan's body was constantly under attack, and he spent half that time in the hospital.
There were many times when Kiernan came into the hospital that were close calls, that, required relatively frequent resuscitation.
There was always something that we were chasing, but there was no clear indication that anything had anything to do with what had happened before or what would happen next.
Time after time, the team at Children's, representing almost every department, would persevere. And their persistence would finally put an end to this medical mystery.
He'd seen almost every subspecialty in the hospital at that point, and it had a whole series of organ systems involved, but nobody had really come up with an overarching diagnosis that would tie everything together.
Camilla Richmond was instrumental in finding the eventual diagnosis. She pored over volume upon volume of his records.
When we got the genetics back from the blood testing, we finally had an answer and could give this family both some prognosis, what to expect, but also a potential cure.
Kiernan was finally diagnosed with the disease called IPEX.
What happens in IPEX is that a group of cells that regulate your immune system and keep it from attacking your body are actually missing. And if you can't make these cells, then basically your immune system starts doing funny things to your body.
Most kids die within the first year of life if it's not diagnosed early on.
So when Kiernan was diagnosed at almost 8 years old, it was sort of surreal to us that somehow he had made it so much longer than a lot of the other kids.
Kiernan's disease was so rare that 100% definitive data on its prevalence doesn't even exist.
Most of the papers written about IPEX talk about 10, 12 patients.
Having a diagnosis meant that there might be a way to fix it.
The only cure was chemotherapy and a bone marrow transplant to replace Kiernan's malfunctioning immune system with a new one.
It scared the hell out of us. It's a process of where you're going to chemo your son, break down his whole system, get rid of it, and put him in danger of not having an immune system and contracting anything that could kill him.
After chemo, Kiernan's bone marrow transplant presented another challenge. To prevent infection, Kiernan was isolated at home for 1 full year. After a year of isolation, Kiernan was more than ready to get out and go.
It's a great, great time in his life because everything's behind him. It's behind all of us. It's amazing for us to be able to be throwing the baseball.
It's amazing. Sorry. He's happy. So we're happy. He's energetic. He was never energetic. He loves sports, so he's constantly playing a sport. Here goes. Everybody loves him. He loves everybody. He's affectionate. He's caring of everybody. He's amazing.
He touches everyone he comes in contact with. We joke he's the mayor of everywhere he goes.
One aspect of Kiernan's story was not a mystery: the coordinated care of Children's Hospital's doctors and nurses and their relentless pursuit of a cure.
I think most of the people in this area realize how great the place is. We always would say, you know, we're a children's hospital. People would say, well, you're the best place there is. I thank so many people that have saved Kiernan's life. There's just so many people that have been involved, and I wish I could thank them all individually, but that can't happen. But you saved someone who's perfect.
When someone hasn't seen him and they look at him and say, wow, he is healthy, because he is. For the first time in his life, he's healthy.